We have a chance to try to extend our season record to 12 games. And that's important for us, and that's the only thing that's really pretty much on my mind. And I think I speak for the masses when I say that. The defense is playing great. The special teams getting great field position. The offense is winning. The point of attack. We found ways to win.
You can't get to there until you take care of what's next.
I want to be number one.
Do you think you are the best?
Right now, at the time in life and where I'm playing at, yes.
What's the deal, Panther fans? Tony Dunn here, C3 Podcast. We're the best because we're here every Tuesday night chopping up the latest Panthers news and opinions from the fan perspective. Ton to talk about this evening. We had a big the owner's press conference, and Joe's trying to get in the show. He just sent me a message. So, Mel, we're going to be talking about that tonight, and you pass the mic off to Cody when you're done.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about, man. It's great to be having a lot of good, positive things to be talking about just before training camp opens instead of talking about Cam Newton's shoulder or somebody getting into trouble. There's always some story out there, somebody getting suspended, somebody doing something else. So it was a good day, a new era in Carolina Panther football, out with the old, in with the new, but not out with all of the old. Things for us to talk about tonight, So, Cody, what's on your mind tonight, buddy?
Chilling, man. Happy to be here back with the C3 on a Tuesday night. And I could not agree more with you, man. There's a feeling of upliftedness in the air. Normally when you have change, people are adverse to it. They want to push away from it. But everyone seems happy, man. Everyone on Twitter, all of us, we seem to have some positive thoughts about David Tepper and what he's going to do with the future of the Panthers. The fact that he mentioned Super Bowls that many times, I'm hyped. I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready to talk about it tonight. Let's do it.
Joe Riolano in the house. Sorry for the delay.
My bad, guys. I was running behind. I am pumped, though, man. What a great... I think this was a really big moment in Carolina Panthers history.
Kind of in NFL history.
Yeah, it is. I hope we'll get more of these, especially over the course of the year, where the owner comes out and, lets the reporters ask them a few questions.
All right, guys. My name's Tony Dunn. It's the C3 Panthers podcast brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com. You can follow us on Twitter at @cat_chronicles. You can, we would appreciate your support right now. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for being in the chat room. You can go ahead and smash that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe as well. Find us on Facebook and everywhere else. Also, this is one of the main sticks we do is this is a show by fans for fans, and what we want you to do is be a part of this show, and you can do that by calling in to the voicemail line and leaving a cat call. The number is 252-228-5098. We'll feature those calls later in the show.
And guys, it's not too late to do it. If you're out there listening, you can still call in right now.
So tonight's episode, guys, is open shirt and hairy chested, but contractually obligated. And what this is referencing
these titles, man.
So are you talking about Panther stuff, or are you talking about your own personal wishes?
I know these titles, right, Cody? Is that look, guys, we saw today David Tepper address the media as he has taken over the Carolina Panthers. And, in this new ownership, it's the first time we've heard from an owner ever in Carolina that I can think of. I think from what people have told me that Jerry Richardson had made 2 public statements in the past, essentially, and that was it. This, though, is David Tepper did come out and talk in a very candid way. I felt like a very honest way in many ways. But here was his initial remarks, and talk about short and sweet. Getting your team, and here's what we're trying to do. If we could hear it. I can't hear it. Can you hear it?
No.
Negative.
negative.
No, it's
here we go.
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
You have thoughts on today? Okay. Just checking.
Oh, good.
I'm thrilled to be here. It's incredibly exciting. Great organization, great football organization. And listen, it's a new day for this organization, and hopefully we'll have bigger and better things to come, including Super Bowl championships in the future. So with that, if you guys have any questions.
Short, sweet, and to the point there, guys.
All right. I like that.
Exciting day. I want to win. Is this something, though? How exciting is that to hear? Because I feel like, duh, we all want to win championships. But, I mean, do you think that's important to get off and say that that is your ultimate goal?
Oh, I think so.
If you're the owner.
Yeah, I mean, what are we as fans into this for? And yes, there's a business side to the NFL, but there is no business without the fans. So you got to put winning up there at the very top of the list. It has to be number one. Because without it, there's nothing else. Nothing else. So
there's so much to go through. I want to go through a lot of this press conference. Here you go. Is the opening question they really got after immediately. I thought this was funny because this interaction with Joe Person is epic. Just to start.
Good morning, Joe Person with the Charlotte.
I know your face.
Okay. That's a good thing. When we spoke to you in Atlanta, you said that you needed some more time to evaluate things. And I know it's only been 6 weeks, but what changes are you looking to make organizationally or personnel-wise just to kind of make sure the things that happen under Jerry don't continue?
Well, this is I don't know if I quite have 24 hours yet that I own this team. So still evaluating things. In general, like I just said, I like to have an open environment, one big family environment where everybody feels safe and forgiven. That means you can come up and talk to people, and there's going to be, just openness on all sides of this organization, on both the football side and the business side.
So he gets off right away talking about transparency and an open work environment. He started it off himself, and set the tone. I mean, literally, he went Tony Soprano outside the coffee shop with the shirt half buttoned, chest hair coming out. This guy, talk about being open. Nah, that was my favorite part. Is I turned on the screen and I was like, good God, man, button your shirt up, bro. So what you get here is automatically the Charlotte Observer comes out. I mean, this is a fair question, I think, by Joe Person. I don't think there's anything here. I would say he ultimately dodged the question and just said, look, and he continued to say that these things are going to be in the past. But guys, we've heard later on that the story, at least from the media and the way that they've been portraying it, that this press conference, the takeaways to talk about were how the statue, we'll get into the statue discussion, and also addressing, kind of some of the things that go into the past with Jerry Richardson. But I think people completely missed the entire storyline of this press conference. It had nothing. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say it had nothing to do. Of course, you've got to talk about Jerry Richardson. Of course, you've got to talk about the statue. I understand that, but that's your obligation from the media. He gave you a giant storyline today in talking about the desire for an enhanced facility. And this was going beyond just the practice field. He said that ultimately he saw all of this, the facilities, as a single concept, one that you couldn't just slap some new practice fields out there and be happy with it. I think that plus sports gambling, which we'll get to in a minute, is the true storyline of today's press conference.
It's funny, Tony. I thought the exact same thing while I was listening to this while I was driving in the car today. And that struck me, and I could not believe the rest of the day on WFNZ when they talked about this presser. They didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
But I thought the exact same thought that you bring up. So, I'm glad to hear I wasn't crazy or the only one thinking about that. But I mean, he then went on to say we're at a competitive disadvantage, and he doesn't want his players to be at a competitive disadvantage. We got to do something about the fields, the practice fields. But 5 minutes earlier, he had said it's all connected to the stadium. So I expect some type of big concept to be rolled out within the next year.
Well, and I think what I heard was Dallas. In Dallas, they have, maybe it wasn't, in a big city somewhere that has multiple sports teams, they're building like this mega complex where all the sports teams can go, and they have a practice facility where they can work out, and the therapy is done there. Just sort of a centralized pro facility.
They even have residences there. They have businesses there. Like shopping, things of that nature. I mean,
Right.
just a mecca. And I think Jerry Jones kind of unveiled that. And really, the first one to do it was New England about 10 years ago. That concept.
Sounds like some communist country's concept of state organized like sports, like where they're going to create a sports city.
Yeah, right, it does. Yeah, you're right.
Like we're going to build the sports utopia.
Something straight from China.
If you could, walk out your front door, maybe go like 7 blocks, and you're at the Panthers practice facility, or you could go watch, the Hornets, or you can go have dinner and, go work out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's mentioned Major League Soccer twice now too, and seeing tandem relationships potentially here.
Right.
And I think J-Dub nails it in the chat. The practice field right next to the stadium, that's 7 acres right there, and it's already being talked at as it's not ideal as it is. I mean, that's 7 acres that could be used for parking, that could be used for tailgating, that could be used for a Panthers museum, even if they wanted to. That's something that Minnesota added with their new stadium. I mean, keep in mind, David Tepper at $9 billion, that guy is always thinking about maximizing profit. And he even mentioned in the press conference today, it's a business, and sometimes people do forget that. So, yeah, in my mind, those practice fields, they're as good as gone, man. I think there's either going to be parking there, or they're going to put something there to maximize money for the city of Charlotte and for the stadium,
I think one of the things that's awesome about this is people are already saying that he are referring to him at $9 billion. And I think that the idea is because he just paid 3 for the Panthers. Like he had to subtract that from the bottom line. Like he'll be back to 11 in no time. But
probably even more.
Let's hear the actual comments that he made on the stadium, because I do believe that this is ultimately a much larger and grander vision that he is bringing to the table than Panther fans have been able to conceptualize to this point, not because they can't conceptualize it, but because there's been no reason to think in these terms. Here is a clip from today's press conference.
You made a reference to development when we were in Atlanta, and all of us have been speculating ever since. So can you talk a little bit about future practice fields, training camp headquarters, those kinds of things? How will you approach that? What's your timeline?
Well, I don't know who wrote the articles about practice field, and this being one of the few places that doesn't have new practice fields. Obviously, we're in need. So I think a lot of these things can't be done independently. I can't talk about a practice field without talking about new stadiums.
There you go.
And as I said before, I view this as, a Carolina Panthers.
That's a huge tidbit right there for the
and where we're putting things. But one of the things I did say that winning is important. One way or another, we have to can't be less than competitive with other NFL teams. And at this point, given our practice field and what other people have in the league, we're falling behind a little bit. So that's because I do view the football side. This is a business. Don't forget that. You're the business guy, I guess, in the room here. So, but the football side is very important, and winning is, like I said, very important, on the football side, and I mentioned the community side. But one of the aspects is that we treat our players right, and we don't have any disadvantages to any other teams in the league. So, top priority would be thinking about that practice field.
I do think that, I want to say that it's hard for me to understand how not having, like how our facilities give us a disadvantage, right? Is that I tend to think of this in the context of like what they're talking. It sounds kind of college footballish to me. Like we need better facilities because that's going to attract better players, which I don't think like that in the NFL. But then I remember, hey, when it rains, the Carolina Panthers have to practice in a ballroom.
Right.
So it's not like they just have kind of some. Yeah, they don't have like sparse facilities. Like they actually don't really exist.
Right.
And it really does put them at a disadvantage, man. I mean,
you look, old Jerry was squeezing nickels, wasn't he? I mean, no practice facilities, no team president. I mean, he looked back on it, man.
Not knowing where you're going to practice, and if you're driving to a hotel or if you're driving to the practice field, depending on the weather, that's not ideal, man. You don't want your players worrying about anything else but next Sunday's football game when they're going to practice, man. It really is a distraction. It might seem like just business talk, but it really is something that has to be considered.
Mm-hmm. And don't fool yourselves, guys. These guys at this level of David Tepper with this level of money, they have a lot of pride and a lot of ego, and they want to be the best at what they do. And thank God for that. That's why they're in the position they are, and I'm glad to have him. But something that I love about Tepper is you put 32 of the richest men in America, the owners of the NFL, in a single room. He's the second richest dude in the room.
Mm-hmm.
He is the second richest NFL owner.
And the other guy invented Microsoft. Is like
exactly
Microsoft. You know what I'm saying? Like, is that you're talking about it's like essentially hitting a gold. But I wanted to mention this. This is completely off topic. My kids right now are downstairs watching Ghostbusters. My wife is treating them, and they were like, "You're old enough, and you can handle Ghostbusters." And I just walked downstairs. This movie's made in 1984, and the secretary says to the tall, skinny one, she says, "So I like to read. What do you like to read?" He said, "Print is dead." In 1984.
Wow.
To me, that was a crazy statement. I just caught it out of the side. I just thought, wow. In 1984, that was big writing right there that nobody saw.
A lot of those movies were ahead of their time. If you go back and rewatch them, there's a few movies that are like, man, they were on to something, dude.
Yeah, crazy. All right, here's some more from David Tepper on these big plans for the stadium.
David, welcome. Jordan Rodriguez, Charlotte Observer. In terms of a revenue standpoint and modernizing this organization to compete with the league around it and the world around it, what are some of your ideas, your ingenuity as you come in and kind of get an overall view of this organization?
So, you're talking about more the business side again, I think. So, look, we have
it's funny to hear women talk about the business side. What if he said that? Oh, God. Routes.
And so the team now.
Think about the fans, and you want to keep the fans in the building. Eventually, it's going to hit, North and South Carolina. It has to, from a revenue standpoint. You have issues with paying teachers and other things down here, and tax revenues. So it's just inevitable.
Zing.
Think about these things, we have to take that into consideration because I want to make sure fans are in that building and cheering this team, and I don't want fans not in that building. So we have to, if the things come, so we are. Sometimes you get lucky when you don't think you're lucky. So one of the things we're lucky is that we do have an old stadium that we have to redo.
An old stadium.
We have an old practice field. We don't have, we have to new practice fields. And along those things, with some of the changes with the gambling, we do have an advantage that we can think about what fans may want and to make sure they're in our building to cheer this team on. Because I do think an active fan base, I do believe that the fans are the 12th man on the field. Okay, and I want to make sure that 12th man's in that stadium. So like I said, some of those things where there are revenue producers. There's other development here. If we do move the practice field to someplace other than right next to the stadium, which doesn't necessarily makes so much sense. You do open up a lot of area for development and other development here, and there's going to be the new Amtrak station, just up on 4th Street, I guess, where the Greyhound station is.
Now, see, that's impressive right there.
So I'm thinking
It really is, man.
all these things are, everything goes hand in hand in this community. And it's not just the business things. It's a matter of also things like high school games. And I kind of think that high school championships should be played in that stadium. That's what I think, okay? Because that's part of the community and bringing that in the community. I also think that there should be more. I don't want to screw up the field, but I think there should be more bigger events there, like, the right type of concerts, okay? In that stadium that there really hasn't been. So I think I want to utilize the stadium a lot more for the community because I think that's important as being a member of the community.
I like that a lot.
In some ways, like you guys, why do you guys think it's impressive? Because he knew where the Greyhound station was? You didn't think he didn't? You don't think he showed up on the bus?
Well, for me personally, I mean, it wasn't okay. So for me, it's if you look at how he's made his money, he's taking risk and bets, but he's an information guy. He makes it a point to know what he's talking about before he does anything, right? Every move that he makes is very, very calculated. And he's already thinking a few years down the road, the sports gambling, a bunch of other different issues that a lot of other people haven't even started to think about yet. And yeah, the fact that he knew about the Amtrak thing, I mean, this guy is already, the cogs are already turning in this man's head. And generally, that's a good thing as an owner because, I mean, that leads to success. That's not just, I mean, I can't think of some of the, worst owners in the NFL right now, but this guy didn't come from football. And that's actually something that I feel is better for Panther fans and for the organization as a whole.
Mel, why were you impressed by that comment?
Well, I just like, to me, it shows he just has good instincts. I'm not sure that he's,
right.
I don't know that he's just incredibly calculating. I just think he knows what he likes and he just has good instincts. I mean, when you bet against the economy and you win to the tune of $10 billion, you show that, he's got a lot of confidence. He's got a lot of, he trusts his instincts. And I think that's going to be refreshing.
I think where for me, what this all shows, or what I like about, or what maybe I'm ultimately excited about when you hear him talk about stadium, practice field, sports betting, transportation and infrastructure really is what a reference to the Amtrak, like a venue concept. What I feel is that I was glad that we didn't just get a owner that was kind of flashy, but not, kind of like, I won't say, just a flashy person on the outside, but a little, not as deep on the inside economically. And then the other thing that I like about this, though, specifically, is that he's not the other type of owner that you could be is a guy that just sits back. He's a billionaire. You took over a winning investment. Just let it run.
Hey,
Sergeant Pepper.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was trying to keep those dogs in line,
But he's coming in more like a CEO who's taking over a giant company that has had success, but a CEO that doesn't look like he wants that, like that believes that he can use that momentum to usher in a new era of success, a new type of success, redefine and broaden that perspective of it. And I think that when it comes down to being a hedge fund manager, ultimately you're you're a banker in many ways. Mm-hmm. And you are the bank, and the bank can be big and innovative. And I think he thinks in these terms, and he's comfortable thinking in billions.
Right.
He's comfortable thinking in a 10-year plan, a 5-year plan, what you're going to do in the meantime. And Joey, I think one of the things that he sees that gambling is something that you better get ahead of the curve on.
Absolutely.
And not be behind it, trying to scramble out and figure out how you're going to make money once everybody else has already rode the wave.
Right. I mean, he's thinking about, I mean, these, are you going to be able to place bets in the stadium? Are they going to have an app where you can place bets while you're watching the game? How is the gambling going to tie into the fans, the stadium? There's so many things that he's got to be thinking about, and as a hedge fund manager, you have to see these things. You have to have your eye in multiple areas. And one thing he said is how anything that goes on with the team, is felt in every area in the community, and vice versa. He mentioned that.
Yeah. When you get the one of the thing about the guys like Tepper, while they have the big brass balls on their desk, I understand that it takes guts to do a lot of these things. But, when these guys are moving and betting in the market, they're really forecasting and it's like playing chess. They're looking ahead to moves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I think you're already seeing here. Now, let's go to this. Let's talk a little bit more about the sports gambling aspect, because I think it's safe to say that the NFL is behind the curve when it comes to the embracement, or at least the openness to the concept of sports gambling. They've resisted putting a team in Las Vegas. You've seen hockey do it. You see the NBA be more involved in fantasy sports and have more direct involvement. One of the things that the NBA is a leader in, supposedly, is that they've been waiting on this moment for states to legalize gambling, not so that they could put DraftKings banners in their stadiums, but so that they can become the book themselves. The NBA be the bookie. They're the one that are collecting the bets. They want you placing the bets with them. And I think it's safe to say that the NFL is behind the curve on this. But David Tepper, maybe it's a Yankee thing, and having betting more embedded into the culture, living much closer to places where it's been legal or has a much larger history than in the South. I think, and maybe he'll be disappointed with this reception of this among Southerners a little bit, but I think that he is seeing this as the prime real estate of the future for the NFL.
Oh yeah, I would agree with you, man. That's a whole nother revenue stream. Big, huge revenue stream that's getting ready to be opened.
And is already there in many ways, but you have just not had you haven't
been able to tap into it.
Exactly. Right. Now, Mel, how do you feel about this? Is Joe mentioned something I hadn't even thought about, an app where you can bet as the game is actually going on. Mel, how about this? Is that when I'm sitting beside you, it's 3rd and 4. What if on the big screen they say 3-1 odds, the Panthers get the first down? Place your bet on the app, but before we're at commercial break.
See, to me, it's a slippery slope, man. I'm not all in on this like a lot of folks are. Like, I think you guys are excited about it. To me, when you got the betting window like a dog track at the Panther Stadium, I don't know, man. It's a 5-point spread. It's a 4-point game in the fourth quarter. Cam's got the football, and all of a sudden he's got a cramp and has to come out of the game. It just changes the whole.
Guys, ticket stubs everywhere.
I know, betting
slips all out there. They're walking out of the stadium already. Yeah.
The internet rumor mill runs amok.
Yeah, I think that Trump throws out a tweet and the line moves. I think enough, but in fairness, though, is that this is what the rich people do already. They're the ones that are watching the ball. They're watching the game at the bar, on the television screen, at the stadium, while us regular folk are the ones in the seats cheering. You know, so like you're just going to have now all the poor folk under the stadium with them, pushing bats the whole time. Like nobody's going to be in their seats.
Right.
You know, there are some, I think what I think it just shows is this. I think that you raise an important point to this when it comes to sports betting, is that in many ways it may be inevitable, but we may need to be careful what actually that product is.
It could turn into boxing, man, you know?
I love boxing, but I hate the sport itself is the
sport went downhill. Yeah, you know, I mean, a lot of corruption.
Yeah. So I think if we had an hour with David Tepper, what I want to talk to him is about not only continue to see how you can integrate that and actually integrate it into the game in a healthy way, but also I think some other things that are really interesting to me are like VR experiences for the future, where people who can't afford to get to the stadium, can they have a more realistic experience than just watching television only? Is that something that could be done? You know, those types of things of how we're going to generate, how do you get more fans on NFL Game Pass or whatever on Panthers.com. One of the things, though, is that we would be remiss if we didn't talk about this. One of the major things, and it was going to be asked, they saved it for the very last question of the press conference. And this is not the last point of the show, but this was the last moment of the press conference, and it's related to this statue.
Charlotte Observer. There's a 13-foot statue of Jerry Richardson outside the north gate. Do you plan to leave that as is or move it?
I'm contractually obligated to keep that statue as it is.
Kaboom! He dropped the mic and that was the end, right?
I mean, like, you go back and listen to this sucker, and he says this. He says, I'm contractually obligated to leave it. And he stops. He just throws it out there, and everybody goes, like, it was total silence.
It was kind of eerie almost. It was like Jerry Richardson, after this whole thing, and that statement from David Tepper had the final say.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Did you guys see the article that Jonathan Jones wrote about it?
Yep. I loved it. I thought it was great points.
I
hope he's the only thing I get a little wary about when I read it specifically, but I think he's a pretty honest dude, Jonathan Jones. I think he's a real legit, like, thoughtful person. I've followed him since he was in college.
Yeah.
The thing, though, with it is that you're always suspicious when people remember back to a moment, but they didn't really say a lot about that moment at the time. You know, like, I was walking up to this statue and I thought it was ridiculous. There was, you know, I mean, like, is that he may have said it, you know, you can go back and look at, you know, at the time. And I do think there were some people saying this thing is a little over the top, guys. It's like a little ridiculous, but that was not the overall mantra, even among us. I think it was like, hey, this is awesome. Look at this badass moment.
The Panthers were cool.
Yeah, Panther. Yeah.
Yeah, and then throwing Jerry in there, this was like, and then, you know, I mean, every time you see it, what are you going to think of? NDAs, sexual assault, racism. That's exactly the memories that it's going to conjure up.
Right.
In Jonathan Jones's article that you're referencing, he referred to it as a middle finger and repulsive.
Yep.
So the act of contractually writing this in, that this really makes Jerry Richardson seem like a douchebag.
Exactly.
Like, you, even when you're caught, you don't think that you've done anything wrong.
No apology.
None.
And so I will say this, right? I mean, we're all in agreement that everything that Jerry Richardson did, it was disgraceful, and it's going to be a mark on the organization for a long time. But God, what a baller move, right? Is that listen? I don't want your $2.5 billion unless my 13-foot statues, where I'm surrounded by two Panthers with giant balls, are surrounding me, and it's still out there. It has to be out there for as long as that stadium is there. Like, come on.
Oh, yeah.
Come on. That's kind of a gangster move himself.
And let me piggyback on this, because that is the point right there. Is
Jerry's
today
going OG.
Yeah, what I learned today. When I tweeted to Darren Gant, because he said this, Tepper says this organization is going to be about openness. And I tweeted him, I said, and he started it with his shirt. And he tweeted me back. He rarely does. And he said, try the veal. And I believe that is a reference to The Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
And
he has tweeted that to people in the past.
And that is talking about how David Tepper is coming in here all Yankee machismo, right? But what I really learned today from that moment, and from some of the talk I've heard everywhere in the world about this today, is that all Southerners, anytime they hear a man with a Northern accent, assume he's affiliated with the mafia. They said this about David Gettleman, remember?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, are you sure they're not?
Okay, good. All right. Is that Pittsburgh? All right. So this on that cue, I saw a picture of people putting pictures of Tony Soprano up and some different things. So today it inspired me to go back and start watching The Sopranos. And I watched the first episode of The Sopranos, and I'm going to tie this all together, guys. I'm watching The Sopranos, and Tony Soprano is on his boat with his mistress.
And he looked a little bit like David Tepper, you got to admit.
Right? The boat's name was Stugat. Stugats. It's like Stugats, and it's like a slang. I looked it up. I was like, what's the name of this boat? What does it mean? Stugats. And you look it up, and it's Stugot, but it's not how you pronounce it, nor is it the original spelling. It's like the slang spelling. But the translation in Naples means this dick. So it's that, and no, but it's like it's a Italian thing of a Naples thing of saying like these nuts.
Yeah.
Right? It is the equivalent of that, except for, you know who said it at the end of that? You know whose boat is named Stugats?
Jerry Richardson.
Jerry Richardson.
No. Yes. Really?
No, I'm saying this is today. He proved it to us today with this clause. Gotcha. He came out, that statue. I think Fowler said, if you read his column on the statue, he said, stick with me to the end, 2 words, and that this statue will mean, and it means they should take the football down. And he said, replace it with a non-disclosure agreement. And at the bottom, oh God, J-Dub brought up a good point. He said, yo, mama might be watching Tony.
I thought the same thing.
She won't watch this long.
Your mama's going to have a stern conversation with you.
God. Yeah. So, he said this is that at the bottom of the statue that they should write sign here. And I think Jerry Richardson should have beat him to the punch and wrote Stugats in English. It's like this. And then I don't know if you can, I think it was stunning how big of I think this was a stunning component. I think we all knew the statue was going to be a focal point of discussion with David Tepper. nobody I thought saw this coming, that this meant that much to Jerry Richards himself. He's been a fraud in many ways, in my opinion.
Well, I want to say something that I haven't heard mentioned a lot before. In the news a few months ago, the Texans owner Bob McNair came out and he was sort of kind of defending Jerry Richardson, saying that he was that Jerry's a great man and that Jerry actually regretted not taking these people to court rather than just settling out of court. And one of the things I do want to mention, and listen, we all know if all of these things are true, they're absolutely terrible. They're absolutely terrible. But there is one thing that must be said. Jerry Richardson never had the chance to defend himself. He never had the chance to answer to any of these allegations that were brought forth. So I think that, that's why I love the Jonathan Jones article, because he worded it, it's Jerry Richardson's last middle finger. Like one final flipping the bird right at you to basically what is an 80-year-old man, 80-year-old plus, with a slandered
legacy.
Yeah, a legacy that he will now never have the chance to unwash. Everything that he has done for the community in Charlotte and in Carolinas at Wofford, that's all gone now because of the last year and a half, and he'll never be able to answer for that. So, yeah, this statue was a little bit of Jerry Richardson saying, yeah, man, here's one right back at you.
But didn't he have a chance to answer? Didn't he have plenty of opportunity
to apologize
or to deny or to do anything? He just folded and sold. To me, what this last middle finger is a message that what he did for the city of Charlotte is greater than anything that he could have than Gene's Day. But I think at the fundamental heart of it is that he doesn't believe he was out of line.
No.
I think it comes back to this, is that you hear about stories. I've been reading this book on Muhammad Ali and and specifically about him versus the United States of America in the draft. That's what the book is about specifically, is not just his life, but this one specific concept. And they were mentioning the judge that heard this in the final court that's going to render the decision that he shouldn't be viewed as a conscientious objector, was an open racist. And not open as in like he's going around saying I want to lynch people or something like this. But what I gathered from the descriptions of it is that it was just like real in his, like, he didn't see it as wrong. He just didn't want, he told his son not to play with black kids. Like it wasn't like he went and told the black kid and called him names, but at deep down, what I think is what I'm trying to get to is that what Jerry Richardson deep down believes is that he's entitled to be this way and that we're the weird ones.
Right. Well, that's when in the era when he grew up, man, all this stuff was acceptable. I mean, if you ever watched like Mad Men, the way those guys treated their secretaries and the women that worked for them, that's the time when Jerry was coming up. So it was normal. It was just normal. That's just how things went.
And pervasive.
It was pervasive.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out, and let me make sure I get it right. I'm pretty sure it was Aaron Scott on Twitter today, Joey. We were talking.
Oh, yeah, it was. That's right.
And, big shout out to him because first he said he wanted to have this conversation with us, and he used the hashtag C3. Love that part. But he said this is that when this came out, he said once as like the moment that David Tepper said that he was contractually obligated, that this was written in, he said, this sounds like to me that this was put out to all the team, all the bidders. And yeah, like, and then what do you know? Couple hours later, or not even an hour later, Adam Schefter, I believe, or one of them, maybe not Adam Schefter. Who's the other guy? Rappaport.
Yeah.
He goes out and he says that that this was written into all the like part of the deal with every bidder. And but Aaron Scott went one further and said maybe David Tepper was the one. Maybe that's why he got away with paying less money. I think it's a big deal. I was stunned by this because Jerry and the partners, when they unveiled this statue, tried to act like he didn't know about it. Like he was kind of demurring about it, I guess is the word. Like just like thank you, you shouldn't have, right? And he secretly.
Well, think about this. Think about this. If I'm David Tepper, I'm thinking, A, that'll help me get a better price, and B, that will help me win public opinion to get a new stadium because I'm contractually obligated to have that statue there as long as we have this stadium.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. What if you built like a wall around it?
Right.
Somebody put a box over it.
Somebody said make it the first floor bathroom.
But then it's Jeans Day on Sunday. Dang it. All right. Let's see what else we got here is we'll skip. One of the things though is that he was asked about the stadium financing and how he saw that working with the community. This is where he dropped the MLS comment. Is that he was saying this is that he views the team as in a partnership with the community. And in a way, I thought this was really probably the best I've heard it so far, because I've heard people argue that you bring in revenue, you bring in tax dollars, and then I've heard people say it's not as much as you see and this and that. But what I liked in the way he framed the language is a partnership where we work together, is that you can't ask me to bring in revenue and do all these things for the community, but the community not be invested in it. And I don't mean just in financially invested, but like you can't just skim off the top.
Yeah, he talked about win-win situations, right? And I like that. That's good business. Making everybody get more.
He seems like it was really supportive of the players too. But here, I wanted to let's play this little clip. He talked about the coaches here.
Sports and WGNC Radio, Carolina Sports Network. Speaking football, you said winning championships is your ultimate goal here. You come from an organization that's had 3 head coaches in 49 years. Do you have a vision of what they did there that you want to see implemented here to kind of speed that process up, like things that they did there that you want to take from that organization to put in place here?
You say speed that process up. It's kind of not speed that process up, okay? A certain amount of patience and let things develop. You actually have, I don't want to give people too many compliments, but you actually are blessed with a pretty good football side here. A head coach that kind of understands himself. I appreciate some of the changes that were made on that staff side. In my view, I would have nothing to do with it, but I'm just going to appreciate it. Norv is a pretty good addition in my mind. On the offensive side, and I think Ron he's a natural defensive guy. Okay, just natural. I mean, natural, like walking down the street and drinking water, natural. So I think you got to appreciate you got a guy that understands that he wants to have a strength in the organizations and bring in good people to do that. That's important. So I think that's kind of the things you like to see. So listen, I'm not looking to do too much there. I think we got some good folks there. And, I know people always want to hear things that are bad or not, but I'm sorry, can't do it. So it is what it is.
I'm going to let you guys respond to that. Mel, I'll let you start. What do you think the tone and the perspective on coaching specifically here was?
Well, I mean, he could have been a whole lot more vague, right? I mean, he could have just said, hey, everybody's under evaluation. We'll see how things go at the end of the year. We'll sit down, review everything. But he didn't. He came right out and talked positively about that group. And I think that says a lot. And to me, it reminds me a lot of when Dave Gettleman came in, because you were everybody was thinking, hey, is he going to come in, fire the coaching staff, bring in his own folks? And he said, hey, what we have is good, and constant turnover isn't always the answer. And Tepper also went on to say he likes continuity and patience, much like the Steelers do and have. So I like what he had to say, and I agree with everything he said.
Joe, your initial reaction to the tone and temperature of those comments on the coaching staff?
I think they were positive, but I would have liked a little more resounding, you know, a little more encouraging terms other than all right or okay.
Or Norv is pretty good.
He referred to a Hall of Fame offensive coordinator in Norv Turner as pretty good.
Pretty good, right. Right. I would have wanted to be a little bit stronger, a little more confident sounding. But it wasn't.
You know what? And just to kind of go with what you're saying there, did you also notice he said, yeah, I think the TV ratings will go down because of gambling. I think sometimes he says things to make you think, and he's kind of like, yeah,
I think he misspoke there. I think he misspoke. I think he was trying to say that they were going up.
Yeah, right too.
Maybe, but I think he's saying things to make you go, oh, I know what you really think. You're joking.
All right. Cody, your initial reaction to the tone and temperature of those comments.
Yeah, so I'm actually on the opposite end of Joe here. I like that he said good, but he didn't give them that glowing great yet, because I still want this entire team, and we've talked about it before with our offense and our defense kind of being underrated in the minds of writers and analysts. I want everyone to have a chip on their shoulder. I don't want Ron or Norv to come in and think, hey, man, everything's golden. Tepper loves us. We can kick back, put our feet up, and just go about business as usual.
Good point.
It's time to win right now. And it doesn't matter if you're Norv Turner or Bill Belichick. If you're not providing the kind of results that we want here in the Carolina Panthers organization, it's not going to cut it, And also keep in mind, at a day and age when a lot of the offensive coordinator hirings have been younger guys like Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, Norv Turner is from a different era of Panthers football. And when a guy like David Tepper is looking at trends a lot, he might see them as an outdated trend, So we really don't know. I'm kind of thinking that he's looking at this season as an opportunity for Ron and Norv and even Marty Herney to kind of prove their mettle and prove what they're going to do with the team going forward.
I'm 100% behind Joe on this. Is that I think, and what I would say is the one way I'm going to differentiate my comment from Joey's is that I think what Joe's keying in on is that he didn't come out and just give an endorsement. Mm-hmm. In fact, like at the end, he tries to, he kind of does a little damage control at the end where he's like, I'm not going to say anything bad. Right. Well, you didn't say anything all that good either. Right. And look, at this point, it's kind of a silly question at this point because we're like a month away from the season. So it's not like you're going to make a coaching change now. Yeah. So whatever change is going to come after the season. And for all you know, we can go win the damn Super Bowl. Right. Is that like what I thought he would say is this, is that, or what I think, what I guess I'm trying to get to is that Marty Herney, Ron Rivera, and Norv Turner and all the list of this coaching staff are not going to bed thinking tomorrow is promised to them. They know that their careers, that their current jobs are on the line this season, because he didn't come out and go, well, this coaching staff has brought you to the playoffs 3 out of 5 years, made it to the Super Bowl, has demonstrated their ability to succeed. And I think that maybe some of the changes could bring refreshing tone. He didn't say that. He said, these guys are pretty good. And it was like, is that if your boss, and so I tweeted, Joe Person never responds to me on Twitter, but I tweeted him because he said David Tepper says a lot of positive things. And I tweeted him and I said, if you went into a performance evaluation and your boss said you're a pretty good journalist, would you come out and be like, you know what? He said positive things about me. No.
Right.
Disappointed. You would be disappointed.
I think what this tells you is this, is that Marty Herney is that his job is 100% on the line. That Ron Rivera, all these guys, a bad season could make a convenient time to change. And so these guys better know that everything is right on this season. But I think they already knew that. So I don't think it was like a message to them.
No.
But it was a message to us. It was kind of straight shooting, a little bit more than I expected, should I say.
And, I also want to add one more thing. I don't think it's a coincidence that Tina Decker resigns, shortly after you hear about, a few days ago, I think she resigned. And if you notice, whenever a new general manager comes in, they like to put their own people in place. And I kind of think that Tina had a thankless job. Imagine as soon as the Jerry Richardson story breaks, your job has to go to everyone in the building and be like, hey, guys, time to go to sensitivity training. Sounds fun, huh? Tina Decker had a thankless job. So I kind of think that he went to her and said, listen, I'm going to put my own people, but I'll let you resign instead of it saying, we're firing you because you did a good job while you were here having to handle the things that you had to handle.
There's so much irony in the whole Tina Decker concept to me, is that, and this is going to be insulting to her, and I don't mean to insult her, but the way that Jerry Richardson did this is not me being insulting. This is Jerry Richardson that created this environment.
Yeah.
Is she's a former cheerleader who is now president of the team. So I don't know her. I've never even seen a picture of her, and I don't want to Google it to just satisfy the curiosity of that chauvinism or whatever it is. But it's to me, it's a message that you can become president if you go to Jeans Day.
Well, let me say this for what it's worth. I have somebody in my family who was a Panthers cheerleader, and she knew Tina. She cheered at the same time Tina did, and she knows her, and she's talked to her. And Tina was as surprised about what had happened as a lot of people were. That from her experience, at least what she's told my family member, is that was not the Jerry Richardson that she knew. It wasn't something that.
So he sheltered her from his foot fetishes.
Right.
And shaving her legs.
Yeah. But, she can't avoid that. She could be the best CEO. She could have been the best president. She could have managed all of this glowingly. We have no idea, really, because we don't see anything.
The perception is there, and perception's reality. Yeah.
Like she was Richardson's assistant, the pretty cheerleader. I think that, I'm sorry, that is true, ultimately demeaning to probably the hard work she put in and various things. But you can thank Jerry for that. I do want to do last thing from the press conference. I do want to mention, because I thought this was cool, because at the end of the day, one of the things that we have to remember is that David Tepper and Donald Trump know each other's names. Right. Obviously everybody knows Donald Trump's name, but Donald Trump knows David Tepper's name. And he has been asked about some comments he made during the campaign time. He's not clearly a supporter of Trump for various social reasons, but he did remind today that he has made plenty of positive comments on the economic front. But when he was asked today about how he would support, I think this is your guys' question, Mel, Darren Gant here, I believe.
If that answers the question.
Darren.
David, Darren Gant, Pro Football Talk. You've been willing to make pointed comments to powerful people in the past. How will you support players if they have opinions that may not be in line with large sections of your fan base and your customers?
I don't really make that many pointed comments to that many powerful people. I made some, you're referring to things I did during the campaign. But I've tried not to make any, since that powerful person you're referring to has been the president of the United States, I really haven't said anything about it, except for a few positive things on economic policy, which again, you guys choose not to talk about. Decide to talk about those things, we'll talk about those.
We'll be happy to talk about them on the C3 podcast, Mr. Tepper.
He called the media out right there.
Yeah, he did.
Calling him out.
Justice.
Yeah, he did.
And I'm actually a big believer in, the country and I'm patriotic. And you guys know the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
He brings them to fifth grade social studies.
Yeah, he does.
Say the pledge.
What's that last part?
I felt like I was worried he wasn't going to remember it, like pull a George Bush.
That's what that's about.
on.
Liberty and justice for all. Okay, this is the most patriotic thing going. So that's all I got to say about that.
I 100% agree with that statement, and this is why I have.
Honestly, I do too.
This is why I've not been threatened as much as some other people or offended by people who have chosen to be outspoken, particularly in the case of the Colin Kaepernick kneeling thing, is that ultimately I think at the end of the day that it's kind of hard to chant against what he's saying, liberty and justice for all. So if we keep that the focus of all of this, and we don't politicize things to a point where we're using it for a personal gain and advantage, but we're authentic in that pursuit of equality and liberty, I think that is truly the most American concept that we're trying to live to be. While we may not have done it yet, and this is what I teach my students, is that that's what we want to be. And so we may not have, it's not something we've lost. It's something that we're working towards.
I don't like it, but I understand it, and at the same time, I do respect it because it is their right.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way of putting it.
There is injustice in this world. We see it all too often. And if this is the way they feel to best bring attention to it, then God bless them. Again, I don't like it, but I do respect it.
Let me tell you this, David Tepper, anytime you want to come on and talk positive about Donald Trump, about how we're going to talk about sports gambling positively, how we're going to talk about the future of this franchise in a positive fashion, you can come on this. You can come on this podcast right here. We'll host you here.
Well, just so long as we don't have somebody else more important coming on the show that night. I mean,
yeah.
You know, one thing that stood out to me in today's press conference is Jordan Rodriguez, and I like Jordan, and I think that, and I don't want to be overly critical of her because I know she's had some difficult circumstances early in her career, but
she's talented.
But she called him David today. She said, "Thanks, David. Can I ask you this?" And I was like, I mean, I'm not trying, and this isn't a woman to a man thing. This is like if I was there and it was my first interview with the new owner of the Panthers, I'd be like, "Mr. Tepper,
right?
Anthony Dunn, Charlotte Observer, key supporter of you." No, but like, I just thought it was like, "Yo, David, what's up, my man?" I was like, dang. And J-Dub says the most important thing, this is Obama reference. He said, "Mr. Tepper, have a beer with Tony." That's a good old Obama reference.
Well, there's no such thing as having a beer with Tony.
Right.
Have a few beers.
If you choose to have a beer, that is your choice in this free country. But I am free to indulge that. And no drinking tonight.
Sorry.
Look at that. Spread 0 right now.
Right on, bro.
I poured gin.
I did notice that a few of the beat reporters did sort of mention, he said a few of the names of the reporters. He did make it a kind of a homely experience, for lack of a better word. He does provide a vibe that is kind of more cordial than somebody like Jerry Richardson. Is Mr. Richardson this and Mr.
You got to call him Mr.
Yeah, exactly.
He would have given Jordan the old stink eye if she would have said,
"Oh
hey,
yeah,
Jerry."
he would." I would have been like, I didn't hear what anybody. I obviously did not hear a question because someone doesn't know their manners. But I'll be happy to rub your feet and explain it later.
Shave your legs. Yeah.
All right. Guys, let's jump into the cat calls for tonight. The number's 252-228-5098. You can be a part of the C3 Panthers podcast. You just leave a message anytime and we'll get you on the show. Here we go. Let's get into these calls for tonight.
So what are your thoughts on catcalling?
Yeah, it's pretty. You shouldn't do that to somebody.
And how did that make you feel?
Very uncomfortable.
So how do you think catcalling makes the person
this
feel?
all of a sudden this intro means so much different now than it did
It really does.
what's going on, guys? Haven't called in a while. I just got a chance to listen to your podcast today. You did a pretty good job and everything. Your boy, Black Cat. Now, I'm only halfway through, so I'll probably get called back if I hear something else like this. But I just can't believe some of the stuff that, first of all, Steve Smith was way faster. Way faster.
Here we go.
Well, I wouldn't say way faster, but Steve Smith was faster. Steve Smith ran a 4.39 in his 40s, and DJ Moore ran a 4.44, I believe.
4.42, man.
And you can just look at the speed on film. Steve Smith was quicker, everything. I mean, I would hope that DJ Moore is, blazing fast, but at the same time, like I said, secondly, Phillip Rivers. I'm baffled. I understand y'all are huge Cam Newton fans. I'm a huge Cam Newton fan, but the say Phillip Rivers isn't a good quarterback. He is a Hall. Put him on a different team. Put him on a good team with a great coach.
Oh my goodness.
Put him on a great
with some
good team
talent
with a great
around
coach.
him, like Antonio Gates, Vincent Jackson, LaDainian Thomas.
Right.
Put some weapons like that. And I know he's had weapons, but he's never had the coaches that they had. So I know it's a Panthers podcast. I had to get it out there. Phillip Rivers.
North Turner was there.
I'm a huge Phillip Rivers fan.
I know that's dangerous to say. Put a good coach around him, and then you're like, crap. Crap. I disagree but I mean, I'm looking at a 2011 dude he just chunks it up, dude. Just chunks it up everywhere. And if Cam Newton made half of those interceptions, he would never ever get any love. I mean, I'm not saying he's been bad. I don't think he's been great.
Well, Phillip Rivers isn't a bad quarterback.
Right. But to say that he didn't have is to imply that he had talent around him in several runs, even
a lot of talent.
Yeah, I was looking back at Ryan Matthews running in 2011, and this guy was awesome, dude. He was amazing. They had the number one offense in 2010. They had, and then 2011, they started out number one in their division and fall behind to last by week 8 or 9 or something. But a lot of it, I know that we're going to look back and go, well, Norv. But I'm telling you, go back and you watch this, the first game of the season on the first play of the season, Percy Harvin runs a touchdown against them on special teams. They started out 7 back right on the first play.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Phillip Rivers was like, he had games where he threw like 4. I mean, he was reckless. I mean, I would say this, it's kind of tough to put the coaching staff in a position. You just look at wins and losses and things or passing yards and you go, look, man, you made a turnover at the most critical time too. So, all right, we'll keep going with it.
Now, like I said, there's so much that I'm trying to process because y'all said.
He's like going through our whole show.
I forgot what that said. But anyway, like I said, I am super excited about Cam actually being able to speak out a little bit more. He does get overly criticized. And sometimes it is to his own doing. Some of the criticism is fair. Like, I know a lot of people don't want to talk about his accuracy and everything like that. So some of the criticism is fair, I know. But I am glad that he's actually feeling like he can speak out. I am not so much in agreement with, I know that he's like a symbol for kids and everything like that. But I think that he's doing a great job right now. He's always doing a great job. He's always been a role model because his actions speak for him. So I'm not too big on, the whole censor himself and everything like that. But anyway, thank you guys. Probably going to call back with something else because this show is actually pretty good.
Well, first of all,
this was actually pretty good.
Thanks for the call, Brandon Black Cat. It was on the draft show, so we appreciate that. He calls in. The number's 252-228-5098. And listen to him. He said, hey, surprisingly, he didn't say the surprisingly part, but it felt like it. It's like, this was actually a pretty good podcast. glad I listened. Well, we're glad you called, brother. We're glad you called.
I do want to say one thing real quick, because I think this is the dude that was talking to me on Twitter. Yeah, we're talking about running combines in your underwear, and we're going to talk about Steve Smith ran a 4.39 and DJ ran a 4.42. We're talking about 0.3 of a second here. And I feel like people kind of took that out of context. The only thing I was saying is that I feel DJ Moore is much more physically gifted than Steve Smith was, and he looks very fast to me on film. Never said that Steve wasn't. I'm just saying I feel like in the end, he has more that he can work with than ultimately Steve had, and that's a good thing for us, man. You want DJ Moore to be an upgrade. That's all I was saying.
I think that in fairness to kind of build on your comment there is that you got to remember this is that he's not 5'8",
right,
and 175 pounds like Steve Smith was when he came out of college. You go back and look at Steve Smith when he was in his rookie year. People at that time thought it was a bad pick by Marty. I believe it was a Marty Herney pick. Maybe it was the guy right before Marty Herney. But the whole point is they thought that this guy's too. You heard this undersized, too slight of build, kind of a bad attitude. You heard those things, and you know what the difference between a lot of quarterbacks can run fast, or a lot of NFL players can run fast. But Cam Newton is built like a defensive end and does it. That's kind of what Julius Pepper's whole thing is that it's not unheard of to hear somebody run fast. It's unheard of for somebody of that size to run that fast. I think that we just have to take into account that DJ Moore is of a bigger body stature right here at this immediate time in his career. So you do hope that they, but side by side, we get, I'm with them. I do think Steve Smith is the faster of the two, probably would remain that way. He still played fast his whole career, I believe. Well, I'd love to see DJ Moore. I can't wait to see him. And I want to see him play just as fast as Steve Smith. Wouldn't that be amazing? And to point out this, one other concept that we got to weave in because of this call is I saw a video today. I posted it on CarolinaCatChronicles.com. And maybe you guys have saw it, but it's another workout video of Cam Newton and Antonio Brown. And other than it being a terrible video title, because they were like, Cam Newton can't keep up with Antonio Brown. Well, no, duh. He's 5'11" and he weighs 195 pounds or whatever he is. Cam Newton is twice his damn size. He's doing the same workouts. Cam Newton is doing wide receiver workouts. That's what he's doing this summer with some Israeli or like Iranian guru who is like this, like trainer. It was him. It was Antonio Brown. And I think they said John Jones was there. I just hope John Jones ain't pumping Cam in the butt with a dang needle.
Or bring
you know where that was going.
Yeah, you're right. Is that like you? Because I'm pretty sure that John Jones is like doing coke, and at one point he got caught for that as Jim Jones.
Yeah, Jim Jones, the rapper.
It was Jim Jones. All right, thank God, not the fighter.
Yeah, as an MMA fan, I would have been concerned if John Jones was hanging out with Cam Newton too. John, stay away from my quarterback, dude.
Yeah, because all right. So let's keep going with these categories.
This is G. Cavassier.
Yeah.
Quick question. Now, we all know that this upcoming season, this will be Devin Futch's contract year, I want to say. And I was just reminiscing of the past. Do you feel like Devin Funches has overpassed Brandon LaFell? Because we got Brandon LaFell a couple years ago from LSU. I liked him. Because back then we were still trying to find a wide receiver that can, be side to side with Steve Smith. Nobody can replace Moose. Nobody. But, my opinion, I think Devin Funches has surpassed Brandon LaFell. Even though Brandon LaFell, he got his ring with the Patriots and everything, But I think Devin Funches is going to ball out this year. To me, he doesn't get enough credit he caught 8 touchdowns last season. That's pretty daggone good, you know. And through my eyes, it is. And now with this North Turner offense, I mean, the sky's the limit for this dude. So my question to you guys is, do you really feel that he's going to have a breakout year, or do you feel like, you know, the rookie's going to outshine him, or the young man out of Minnesota, Jerry is right? I want to see what he's going to do. I really, really, really want to see what this dude is going to do. So you guys just give me your opinion on that, and remember to keep pounding.
My initial response to that is I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised with Devin Funchess, and this is coming from a guy who has not been overly just smitten with him from the beginning. Starting with the salad comment, I know it's petty, it's petty, but it's real. The other thing is that
it's real.
I felt like it's more of a fan thing. I think that they were too in that first season, like it was too much like he was a can't miss. Dave Gettleman knew something, traded up. Ricky Pro knew something, traded up. And I didn't think that we needed to do that. So I think that also colored my perspective on it is that I felt like, hey, no need to trade that. We could have gotten him as it was. I think, though, in fairness to Devin Funchess until this point, though, is that he's been put in a difficult position specifically for such a young player. He's only 21 years old. He's like the youngest player in the NFL almost, it feels like, for a guy going into his 4th year or whatever. I think he's learning the game. I think I think last year he showed he took a step forward. I think he was more reliable at times. And I think this year, now that you got Christian McCaffrey in a second year, you've got Greg Olsen hopefully coming back healthy, and now a little bit more talent surrounding you on the other side. Maybe that takes some pressure off Devin Funchess, gives him an opportunity to play in the manner that he's learned over the last couple of years. Joey, what do you think about Devin Funchess this year?
I do expect him to have a big year. I think he's going to fit into Norv Turner's system perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be the big guy that Norv likes to get the ball to. And, you know, he's gotten better every year, I think. And I don't expect this year to be any different.
Cody.
Contract year, man. Yeah, I mean, it's really just what Joey said. I mean, Norv Turner likes to utilize big receivers and pass-catching tight ends. And like I said, I remember we were talking about Bug Howard as like our free agent, you know, crush or whatever, the tall guy from UNCC. And we were talking about him because we have no other big body receivers on the team other than Devin Funchess. And Norv Turner likes to utilize those types of dudes. So there's no reason to think that Devin Funchess doesn't have all the opportunities necessary to have a standout year and get paid, you know?
Mel?
I mean, he looked great right after the Kelvin Benjamin trade before he got injured, right? Before that shoulder.
And he played a lot through that injury. I want to give him some credit for that.
Absolutely.
You know, so coming back healthy, I think he's going to be great. Now, as a matter of fact, there better be some good conversations going on now about should they lock him up before he goes out and puts up 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns, and we got to pay him $12 million a year next year.
To fully answer the question at the end of the day, I think yes, is that he has surpassed Brandon LaFell because there's still we see that the upside.
I was never a big fan of Brandon LaFell. So he had hands like Ted Ginn.
Another guy that's put in a difficult position, drafted higher than he probably should have been, and asked to do a little bit more than he could potentially. But here we go. Last couple calls, I think. Can't hear him. Nope.
Wanted to ask about Trey Turner's role this year, and
this is a good good call.
How he's going to be on the offensive line.
Okay, so one of the things though that was completely overshadowed by today's press conference that we did not get to talk about was the video from last week that Cody tell us again who put out this video, and it was Panthers offense whack. Was it or something like that? Or
Yeah, man. I've been a fan of this man for a very long time. If you haven't seen the video, go and look it up. His name is Brett Coleman, and he actually used to work for the NFL Network. And he's very, very smart. Puts a lot of production value into his videos, and he basically did a breakdown of the Carolina Panthers and how our run game was an anomaly. And he showed you why it was, and he echoed so much of the sentiment that we have been saying forever about Mike Shula and how he would call the worst plays, especially considering the type of personnel that we had. Definitely check out this video. You're going to learn a lot, and it's fun, man. I mean,
we're
really
going to
does
get
a
him.
deep dive.
I promise you, I'm going to get him on this show. The one thing that stood out to me about his video was right off the bat, he says, if you look at the stats of the running game for the Panthers last year on the surface of just yards per game or whatever it is that you're looking at, they are misleading. And this is something that I have said over and over on this podcast throughout the seasons, is it just don't look good. Is that without Cam Newton, there was zero run game. It wasn't new. The 2015, the year that Stewart, I think 2015 was the oddity, is that like that was the one year that the run game was dynamic. But again, Cam had 700 yards last year. Like, I mean, he breaks off what I'm saying is that, and what he ultimately said is that when you look at it on a play, on a real basis, you exclude Cam, this run game was not productive. And when they were productive, he continued to isolate and say that it was when they ran plays to Norwell, behind Norwell, and that they were able to, that he was the one guy who was winning the battle, as in just man up and beat your guy in front of you. But the other guys were not doing that. And what he was not doing was criticizing. He's saying this, there's people all throughout the league that have problems with this. But when you have that problem, you have to play to those guys. Now, to the question on the call, though, I think this comes back to this, is that Trey Turner, I think he showed that he was either hurt last year or something was up. He did not have the season when Norwell looked so great, and we're not talking about Trey Turner. Ultimately, I think Trey Turner is just as every bit as good of Norwell, if not better. So I think there's something there with Trey Turner. But again, something that's been on this podcast and asked about Darrell Williams, I think, again, this shows you that maybe Darrell Williams, if we just look in a vacuum at those Pro Football Focus numbers, are they misleading? Because it wasn't like the Panthers had a particularly effective run game on the right side. You could say it's because of Trey Turner, but it was not because of Darrell Williams making up for it. I don't know how that plays into it. I just think it's a consideration.
And, Tony, you and I talked about this before. There's some dudes on Twitter that we both know about, and they love to, criticize and pretend like they're experts. And I think a few of them write for a few of the Panther publications, but they love to criticize Darrell Williams and show all the clips of him getting dominated at the line of scrimmage. And one of the things that they say is that his numbers were so high because he was playing next to Trey Turner, and that Trey Turner helped out Darrell Williams considerably. And that is something to take into consideration. Trey Turner is always going up against the pass rushing defensive tackle. So he had a thankless job on that defensive line, I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting season for Darrell Williams. I think more so than Devin Funchess. But
yeah, maybe that's the case with Trey Turner. I think that we could have looked at Trey Turner's play last year and said it left something to be desired.
I mean, he got abused by Fletcher Cox.
Oh, he killed him.
Fletcher
was ugly.
So,
Fletcher Cox made a lot of good. Yeah.
All right. Look, that's everything for tonight's show except for the ice up comments. I want to thank everybody for the participation. J-Dub, especially in the chat room, man. We couldn't do it without you guys and your support. The website is CarolinaCatChronicles.com. The podcast is the C3 Panthers podcast. We want you to subscribe, and we need your help. And the way you can help this show grow is by sending the link to the show or to the podcast, the audio podcast, to one Panther friend and saying, hey, If you're since you're a Panther fan, I think you enjoy this discussion, and I promise you, I think they will, and that can help us one person at a time grow Panther Nation together. But guys, now we're going to jump in to the Ice Up picks of the week, and Mel Mayock, I'm going to let you start.
All right. Well, hey, we've already talked about it tonight, but I think we'd be remiss on a day where power officially shifted from one to the other if we didn't take one nice little parting shot at the previous owner. Now, with that said, I do want to point out, just like every other human on this earth, no one is all good or all bad. I mean, right. Jerry did bring football to the Carolinas. He did do a lot of good in our community. So he is not, a piece of trash that should just be, totally villainized, right? But he is going to earn my Ice Up Son pick tonight because you leave in shame. And as a part, do you really think it's going to help your legacy to require the new owner leave your statue up out in front of the stadium? I mean, that's just, I don't even know what to say about that. That's just unbelievable egotism. And maybe at the end of the day, it's a great thing it shows character. It shows his character or lack thereof. I mean, it's quite disappointing because 1995, I met the man down outside of the Clemson Stadium before the first game. He came over. He was so gracious and so welcoming, and it helped me to fall in love with the franchise. And I really loved Jerry Richardson. He went through a heart transplant, came back even stronger. He epitomized keep pounding. But boy, did he just go down like the Titanic here at the end. And I think that was really a desperation move, hoping that it would help cement his legacy, and it's an epic fail, in my opinion. So, Jerry, thanks for all you did, but Ice Up, son. It's time to go away.
Ice Up, you actually did know what to say. You said, I don't know what to say this, but
I went on about it, yeah.
You knew exactly what to say, which is Ice Up.
Ice Up. That's right.
All right, Joe Riolano, what you got for us?
My Ice Up this week goes to someone who I would have thought would have been able to show appreciation. Duncan Jackson is a cheap son of a gun.
Oh, wait.
He was out at
he deleted it, by the way.
Yeah, he did delete it. You're absolutely right. He was out at a restaurant and ran a $120 check. I'm sure many of you probably saw this.
I didn't hear this at all.
Oh, yeah. This is
$120 check. And for a tip, he left $5.
And to make it worse,
he drew eyes in the zeros and put a smiley face. In the under the zeros and $5 in the $5. So he added insult to injury. And this is really surprising to me because he just signed a $4 million contract. He just made $4 million. And it was the server who tweeted this out. And he replied to her.
Yeah, that was the worst part.
He replied to her and said, at least you got $5 more than you did before.
He said be grateful.
Right. And and that is just sickening.
Let's just hope this is something 10 years from now. He looks back and say, man, I was so stupid.
It's sad because it'd be one thing if he gave him bad service. But she said, I took care of everything and I handled him and his party and 5 other tables.
Well, she also said in the tweet to him, she said, I would like to know. She didn't call him, just blast him for being a cheapskate. She said, honestly, was the service bad?
Right. Right, so she knows she did her job and was more deserving than a $5 tip.
Well, see, the thing is that you give $10 on bad service on $100 tip. Like on bad service, horrendous service, you give $10. Right,
and that's sickening because these these people work hard. You know, she might be there. Who knows what the situation is in her life that she's there now. And on top of icing up Jackson, I want to ice up all those people who I saw in the comments that said she needs to go find another job. That it's her fault for working as a waitress and everything else. That makes me sick. All of you that were negative in your comments to the server, you can go ice yourselves up too.
I did say that's what you get for being a Saints fan, because she's got a Saints banner on her.
Well, there's some truth in that.
I didn't mean it though. A Panther fan came after me, rightfully so. I didn't mean it like that, but I did go to follow her. That was my thing. I went to go follow her and I had a big Saints picture. I was like, nope.
But if she were a Falcon fan, she would have gotten a pretty good tip, $28.30, right?
That's exactly right. I want to raise the point that Mel was implying is hopefully in 10 years he looks back and goes, this is dumb. I do think that what we have to pause, or not in this case, I think the ice up is justified. All of that, I think, is whack. But
I don't think we need to boo the dude either. You know, he's a young man.
No. I think we have to remember that he could be potentially a very young man. And I work with young people all the time, and sometimes they don't know any better. And it's not that the question is, does he learn from this? I think hopefully deleting the tweet indicates that he's starting to recognize that, wait a minute, this won't cool. I see what's going on. The thing is that sometimes we have to teach people etiquette, but if they don't know it, you know, so if he hasn't been to a big restaurants and tip, but this seems commonsensical. By the time you're 21 years old, you realize you tip your waitress. That's what you would think, especially when you're balling out, right? And you're known for wanting to chit chat, chatter all the time, supposedly. So to him, we say ice up. Cody Lashney, what you got for us?
Yeah, man. Tony, I definitely hope you have something more lighthearted following mine, because mine sort of piggybacks kind of on what Joey just said, and it's about what social media is kind of doing to our young people, and it's not a good story. It's not a fun one. And I don't mean to be Dapper Dan, but it needs to be said, man. It's Jackson County, Georgia. A woman is in a nursing home, and she's on death's door. And there are 3 nurses there who are attending to her. And as she is dying and the machines are going off, alerting that all is not well, instead of alerting people to help, they open up Snapchat and decide to film the whole thing and put it on internet. The final moments of a woman's life on the internet. And it shows how desensitized the internet is making people nowadays. Everything is a moment for people to like and, share with their friends and be silly online. People don't understand human emotions because they're buried in their phone all the time, and they're doing something just for clout online. And it's a dangerous thing, man. And it's absolutely terrible that they had not a shred of emotion for the life of someone that, who knows what stories this woman had to tell. And that's what the final moments of her life was like. I'm not even going to say the names of these 3 women. All I'm going to do is repeat the famous words of one Steve Smith: ice up, son.
Yeah, I'd say this, and probably something Steve Smith would also say, is say that shit to my face. That's what he would
that shit to my face.
All right, my ice up pick goes to all of these former football players, specifically now Brandon Browner, who's been arrested for I don't even read the stories once I see it, but I've seen multiple stories now. One, Brandon Browner. The other was the former tight end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Jets, maybe. The guy from Miami, his dad was a big player. What was his name? Kellen Winslow Jr., I think.
Winslow.
And these guys have been like kidnapping and raping people and like doing real nasty stuff in a way. So I tell you, we all knew it with Brandon Browner. The 3 teams he played for were the Seattle Seahawks, the New England Patriots, and the New Orleans Saints. I could have told you he was bad news from that alone, but you go out there and you're kidnapping all these people. Man, mind your own business. Say it in my face, A, and B, don't be kidnapping and raping people. Like, be happy.
Shouldn't have to
be
tell
nice to
people
people. God, ice up to you guys. Guys, this is the C3 podcast. There was tons to talk about. I thank you for all your time, for your listeners, for the listeners, but also for the guys on this podcast as well. Mel Mayock, tell them how they can find you to continue talking football between Tuesday and Tuesday.
Hey. Well, you catch me anytime on Twitter, man. Hit me up at Panthers Drafter. Happy to talk anything all the time.
Cody Lashney, where can they find you, my friend?
At Cody Lack on Twitter. I'm talking a bunch of nonsense and Clemson and Panthers football. And from time to time, I'm on Twitch on twitch.tv/Codais, Codais. And yeah, man, come hang out with me.
Mike Frazier says exactly why I left Twitter and the rest. Thanks, Cody. And also J-Dub says I don't have Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, anything because of this. Joe Riolano, tell them how they can find you, where you mainly just talk cars and football.
That's it. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Riolano. Yeah, send me your car pics, people. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, dude, they're doing a car week on History Channel, on the History Channel, and they're going to try to mimic what the Discovery Channel, I think, does with Shark Week. They're going to do a car week. I think it could be very successful.
Hopefully, they're not doing drunk car history.
Yeah, we don't want that.
No.
All right, my name's Tony Dunn. This is the C3 Podcast. You can find me on Twitter at @cat_Chronicles, and you can check us out next Tuesday night. Talk about some hopeful. We're getting closer, folks, inching towards football.
Training camp starting soon.
Yeah, I can't wait. We're going. Well, hopefully some of us will go, but until then, we'll talk about that next week. Good night, folks.
All right, good night, people. Keep out.